scheduled zoning board of appeal meeting. It is our custom that we begin by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys could please stand, face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So let me begin by saying Happy New Year to everyone. Hope that everyone had enjoyed their snow week. And yes, we're here back to business. It is our custom, is anyone in here for a public comment that haven't filled out one of these forms? If you are here, please see the staff over there and they'll give you one of these forms to fill out. Public comment, you have up to 3 minutes. You don't have to utilize the entire 3 minutes if you don't need to. And if someone came before you to say pretty much what you want to say, just say, I agree with the individual that was ahead of me. All right? So we're going to move right along into our meeting. Are we good with our notifications?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. Adoption of the agenda. Have someone to, excuse me?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Don't we have
With-
to?
Oh, we have
we
yes,
have the
with number
first
6
meeting.
has been removed.
Correct. Notification that item number 6 has been removed per the applicant request. So it's been properly made and.
I'll second it.
Properly made and second. Who's for the agenda?
I did.
All in favor of adopting the agenda? It's been passed. So we just did the agenda. Hopefully you are in favor of adopting the agenda. All right. Approval of the minutes, October 24th. Minutes, have everyone have the opportunity to review?
I'm going to recuse myself since I was absent.
Okay.
As was I.
All right. So I think we still have enough to adopt the October 24th meeting. Would anyone like to place a motion on the floor to adopt?
I move we adopt.
I'll second it.
So it's been properly made in second. All in favor that was here? It's been passed. And the November 21st meeting. I think everyone.
Right there, I was not here, November, I was here, yeah.
Okay.
I forgot to approve it too.
I move we accept the minutes of November.
I'll second.
So it's been properly made in second. All in favor? It's been passed. All right. Item number 6. That's been removed. Item number 8. Succession, Ladies Island Development Partners. Ladies Island Development Partners?
Number 8?
Yes.
Yep. Troy Bogan, representing the owner of the property. The request is for a building setback variance to build a single-family home on a platted lot.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why did you push it so close to the marsh when the front setback is only 12 feet?
You talking about pushing it back?
It's pushed back to the rear of the lot when it could be brought a lot further forward on the
Forward.
lot.
It probably has to do with how the line, if I remember correctly, sorry, it's been a little while since it's submitted, but I think the line comes in near where the driveway comes
It
into the
goes all
property.
over the place, but.
So we're
but
trying
it's-
to maximize, I guess, the building footprint area, so it'd be constructability around it.
But it also seems like that the more significant marshes are to the back of the property, because that's a platted lot next door that has,
Yes.
so, I mean, if it could move closer to the street, I think it would be
Yeah.
not as egregious.
Okay, yeah, love to look at that.
Did y'all want to see these, the aerial?
So. So did you say you wasn't agreeing, so moving it closer.
Moving it forward, yeah, I mean, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, I think the request is just for building
I would think
setback
if we
reduction.
moved it from the front property line, that it was 25 feet from that or so, that would give them plenty of room to park and,
Is there a way to pull that up on the screen? So,
The critical line is at the front. That's where he's getting the waiver from the.
but it's back here too.
Yes, but this is the closest. See, it comes all the way into the lot.
Right, but if you look at,
But if you bring the house down,
but this is, seems like the more, because that's a platted lot, I mean, that's,
yes, but the reason why we pulled it back is to get and we told him to do the pervious, so he could be further, this is
Yeah,
all
it's kind of
pervious,
opposite.
so that's the critical line, that's the critical line. He's now 4 feet, so if he brings the house down, I mean, the house is gonna be sitting on the marsh. Just, if he slides it
yeah.
down, it's gonna be sitting on the marsh.
But what it looks like to me is that this is the
I
main.
get it.
Yeah,
The back here, that's fine, but he also has marsh on the sides. So the house is further away, but the closest we could get the house with the thing is 4 feet from that side.
okay.
So that's why we said, okay, push back some so that you can get more, because if he brings it down, the house is gonna be sitting right over the marsh on the sides.
Right. But what's
And
gonna,
this is a platted lot, so more than likely it's unbuildable, because
right,
there
but then
may
are they
not
gonna come
be-
and get a variance
no,
because?
I don't think so. This out of all the lots, this one was the worst one.
Except for
where-
that one, which is all marsh.
Right, but they haven't asked for anything for that
Okay.
one yet. So because of this, his setback is off the line, off the property. So if he brings the house forward, it's gonna be sitting over the marsh. So that's why he pulled it back. And then, so he's gonna try to capture all this water and take it to that side. And this is purpose. But I get it, this is the main,
Yeah,
but the critical line is also here. So unless we build it on top of the critical line, and I don't think OCN is gonna allow that. That's why we recommended approval.
Right. Is there any more questions for the applicant? Sir, if there is any more questions, we'll definitely call you back.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. I guess we have heard from the county. Hillary, would you like to?
Sorry.
Guess you don't want to come back up, huh? No need to.
I explained why we recommended approval.
yeah,
And for the very reason that I said, if you pull the house away, at least you'll get the gutter on the back, so to take that water away from the rear marsh. But because the critical line comes in on the sides, that's why we had him try, the closest the house is right now is 4 feet from the critical line. So if we move it forward, he's gonna be on top of the critical line. So we didn't want to render the lot totally unbuildable, so, and this house is comparable to all the others that are gonna be built.
In size.
That's why we recommended
Yeah.
approval.
No worries. Thank you. Is there any public comment?
Another question, Hillary.
Yes.
If we gave a relief on the 5-foot side, they could probably move it up here, and then they would be further away from that marsh too?
So you're saying push it over?
Push it over, maybe, what is that, probably
That will give you 2 more feet?
2 more feet, and then you could bring it all the way up here.
I'd have to see it drawn. So you're saying move over 2 more feet and then pull it forward and see how far we can. Would you like to do that? At least
Yeah,
demonstrate,
Yeah, I mean,
show us?
that'd be
You wanna see
fine.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
you know, this is sort of our pinch point right here.
Right.
So if we gave a variance on the
The side.
5-foot setback, say, so it would be 3 feet, and then you could pull this up like almost up to here. And that way we would give relief to this bigger marsh.
Just a projection at that point.
Yeah.
It'd have to be, it might have to be the whole 5 feet. Just to be able to get.
No, that's not 5 feet.
Right now, that's 4 feet from the critical line to.
Right, but from this point right here, that's the closest one. And if this was all moved this way,
You're okay being right on the critical line?
Well, show us what it's gonna look like. Move it over, like she said, and show us where the house is gonna be so we can measure it and see.
and then
if
pull
we
as
can get
forward
further
as you,
away.
forward as you can, so we get away from that big marsh.
Would that mean we'd come back?
No.
I think we could let Hillary decide.
We, yeah, they can make the, to move it over, and then if it doesn't work, then
Then-
we'll stick to this.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
So do we
Is this
need to
two
conditionally
variances now, or
approve
one?
this?
I think we,
It's just one.
Just one, okay.
Yeah, the closest to the critical line. So
Okay.
whichever, if he moves it over and we see where we can get further away and pull it, then we can do that.
So would that be a conditionally approved with your recommendations with a strong preference or recommendation?
Well, you guys just add that extra stuff to what I have here.
Mhm.
Is that you're giving a variance to the side yard to be 3 feet
Okay.
or 2 feet from the property line,
right.
and then pull the house forward so we can see.
Why don't we say a side
Then
yard
what?
setback variance of
3,
3 feet, or maximum of 3 feet,
okay.
and then based on the director's review of the placement of the house.
Yeah, once you pull it forward.
Mhm.
Okay.
And if that doesn't work, it'll stay as is,
It-
correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
All right, sounds good. Glad we got this taken care of.
Can I make a motion?
Well, let me do public comment.
Okay.
We don't have anything, but is there any public comment for item 8? If no public comment, we'll close public comment. As long as your chance to return to make a motion.
Okay, I move that we approve the variance from the setback with the condition that, no, let me start again. I approve the variance, the setback variance, including up to a 3-foot side yard setback, which will be determined by the planning ZBOA director in the placement of the house. Is that clear?
Yeah, and just the friendly amendment, the approval contains the 3 other
Right.
recommendations
Yes.
of the.
I've lost my, yeah, and, with the following conditions, the applicant shall place gutters on the roof and divert all runoff as far from the critical line as possible. Applicant shall submit planning plan for the entire remaining buffer area for revegetation. And applicant shall adhere to all requirements for approval of a single-family home.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to approve with the 4 conditions. May I have someone to second that?
I'll second it.
So all in favor of approving? So it's been passed. You get with the county, and you can move from there. All right. Item number 10, Michael and Heather. Requesting a variance in OCR and critical line.
Yes, sir. It's John Griffin on behalf of the owners with Pfeiffer Contracting.
You can go ahead.
Well, so our overall viewpoint with this home and requesting 30-foot river buffer, we have been approved by the Datal ARB They do find it in harmony with their overall conceptual idea for their plan unit development. The river buffer we are requesting is consistent with the neighbors to the east and west. Specifically, our neighbor to the east, to the west actually has a 20-foot setback. And the neighbor to the west does have the 30, so we are requesting the 30-foot setback, and not all the way to the, anything near the 20, or a 20 rather. The design of the home, we tried to design it in an effort to preserve as many specimen trees on the lot as possible. Specifically, you'll notice a cluster of live oaks. And also to try reducing the footprint and the impervious in consideration for site drainage. We do feel like we have a hardship as it pertains to the shape of the parcel of land. If you notice, it is very narrow at the entry point. And the narrowness upon that entry and the garage setbacks from the Daltar ARB somewhat dictate how the house has to be configured on the site. That's really our overview for this variance request. Other things we are happy to do, and agree with very much so, is the recommendations from Hillary and everyone else to divert all water runoff via gutters back to that 50-foot critical line, and the revegetate plantings. We do agree and are definitely on the same page with regards to that.
I have a question. Is
Yes,
this a
ma'am.
custom designed house or a plan-built house?
This is a custom designed house by Nate Shin.
I would think as a custom designed house, they would have the opportunity to make it fit on the lot better.
Yes, ma'am. We do have another conceptual plan of us trying to pull the house further forward toward the garage setback. We do see that if we do that, it does tighten the turn radius into the garage, but it does get us about another 6 to 7 feet from the critical line.
So you're saying you have tried to minimize the encroachment?
Yes, we
By
do.
six?
Yeah, by about 6 to 7 feet.
I had a comment up here. I drew this house.
Excuse me, sir.
I can clarify that question.
Yeah, but if you want to come up
Sure.
to the podium.
My apologies.
So when we started this design, underneath the Dalton PUD, we actually went to ARB.
What's your
and-
name?
Nate Schoen, sorry, SCHON. I drew this house. So we started out by looking at the neighbors, realizing that there's a 50-foot setback currently, but not when this house was platted or not when the Dalton was platted. You'll see the 50-foot line is really, there's nothing left to use on the lot. So we spoke with ARB, compared it to the two neighbors, and actually all the way around the cul-de-sac. They were actually used a 20-foot buffer on most of those houses. If you go around the cul-de-sac even farther, they're 20 foot on one side and 30 on the other side. So in speaking with ARB and knowing it was a PUD, we tried to clarify, is 30 foot gonna be okay with Dalton, which they gave us the okay to. And, you know, shame on me for not coming to zoning to ask zoning for that, but we felt that we were keeping in harmony with what Dalton wanted and what we had to work with a leftover lot. Does that help that clarify
Are
that,
there-
where we did that from?
But
Are there any empty lots adjacent to it? Or
That's
are
the
they-
only one on that cul-de-sac left.
But it could have been designed differently to fit better.
I don't know, to save those trees, which was a big
Okay.
consideration, that there's oaks along the right-hand side that we went out our way to try to do that, and also put the master upstairs to minimize our footprint for the house, right? Trying to make that overall impact of pervious area to the lot. We tried to minimize that by moving upstairs, which we don't do a whole lot of masters upstairs, you know, especially in a Dalton neighborhood. So we tried to comply with all those different restrictions and an odd lot size, and that's how we came up with that design.
How's the size of this house compared to the other house?
We fit within the Dautal guidelines, which is a maximum of 3,000 heated square feet, which we fit within all those same guidelines and have been given approval and meet those guidelines. I couldn't tell you exactly the sizes of the neighbors' homes, but as far as the massing goes, if you look at our front elevation and look at the other neighbors, we actually kind of look a little bit smaller than some of the neighbors to the left and right. So I think that massing and that feel of that cul-de-sac, I think is very much in harmony with what Dautal intended when they platted the neighborhood originally.
And you did say you have a letter from Dautal stating that they gave their.
We have their ARB approval letter, yes, we do.
All right, is there any more questions for the applicant? So if we have any more questions, we'll call you guys back up.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from the county.
The applicant came to the SRT, the staff review team, and this house is 940 square feet larger than the average house in that neighborhood. The average house size is 3,626, and he's proposing 4,566. So it's much bigger than the others. So SRT could not approve it because we have that guideline, 5 left, 5 right average. So that's why he's here. I recommended disapproval because I think the house size is much too large. And, but if the board is going to grant the variance, these are the conditions we'd like on that.
All right. Is there any questions for the county?
Is the overall footprint of the house,
We don't, it doesn't go by just the footprint, it goes
Right. I
by
was just
the
asking
total
from-
house, yeah. So the average size, we go through the tax records and we look at all the house sizes and we get the average house size. And he's 900 square feet over.
So that's heating and cooling square footage, correct?
Say again?
Heating and cooling square footage?
Total, yes.
Not porches or anything?
Porches, everything.
Oh,
That's everything,
included.
yes.
Okay.
So if you were to pull that house up, would that still be, I think you said it's 7 feet?
I don't think he'll be able to meet the 50. See,
Right.
yeah,
So it'll
so,
minimize his,
well, I mean, that would be up to him. He can pull it forward and see, but you guys would still have to grant him the variance for
Right.
whatever that new setback would be.
I mean, I think it could easily be redesigned to be behind the setback or a lot closer to the 50-foot.
is there any more questions for the county? Thank you, Ms. Hillary. Public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment for this item? Oh, number 10. James Lawton?
That's for the next,
Oh,
for
you,
the Armada.
I don't think there's any public comment for this one.
okay. Oh, you put down number 10, okay. All right. So if that's the case, we close public comment. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have before us.
well, there's a couple factors, I think. I think the lot is shaped, you know, it is difficult to, all the spaces in the back. However, the two houses, the one to the right and one to the left was 20 and 30 feet into the critical line. The big thing for me was that there's not a lot of buildable lots around there. Like, it wasn't creating a precedence for, 10 new houses. So I would be willing to grant the variance if they could move the house back, with what they were suggesting, the 4 or 5 feet, as much as they could, where they could actually get in the garage in that skinny entrance. I'd be willing to grant that variance. And
I'm not in agreement. I think it can be redesigned. I mean, just looking at it, pulling some of this forward, I mean, that huge deck out there, they could do something else. I mean, I think another house could fit on this lot a lot better,
With the 50-foot, within the 50-foot?
or closer to the 50-foot. I mean, maybe we give a 5-foot variance or a 10-foot instead of 20 feet. I mean, it's,
If he pulls it up, 7, we said 20, that'll be what? 13.
37, so that's 13, I mean,
Well, would you like to put a motion on the floor?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance to go into the river buffer if they could move the whole house back 5 feet, with the conditions that the staff review put on with the revegetation and place all the gutters and roof and divert all the runoff to the 50-foot buffer before discharging. And that they adhere to all the requirements for approval of the single-family home.
So it's a motion on the floor to grant the variance.
And just to be clear, you said push back, but that's pull forward.
Yes,
5
yes.
5 feet, yeah. I'd second that.
So it's been motion on the floor to grant pulling the house. So I think you said 7 or 5, how many?
I do have some copies here of the scenario if you'd like to, for a little bit of clarity for you.
If you said 7 feet.
Yeah, one corner, we get up to 36 feet and 1 inch from the critical line, and another corner of the covered porch, we get to 37, approximately feet, 3 inches.
Amend my motion to 7 feet?
Yes, yes.
Oh, 6 feet.
Yes, ma'am. It'd be 6 feet.
6 feet.
All right, so it's a motion to grant it, pulling the house forward 6 feet. It's been properly made in second. All in favor of granting this variance, signify by raising your hand. Opposed?
Thank you.
Granted your variance.
Thank you.
You can give it to the county. Thank you, sir. Item number 12, Manda Acquisition LLC.
Good evening. My name is Trip West with Cypress Engineering. We're the civil engineers, worked on this project for the last couple of years with Armada Development. If I may, a couple of quick questions before we kind of jump into the request. I think we have 2 items on the agenda, a variance for the street length and a special use permit. Do we need to address them individually?
Correct.
The variance first, and then we'll move on? Okay, and the second for our client's benefit, and I have the privilege tonight of this being my first time before you guys. I've been involved with other projects in the county, but none that came to this point. So we had heard that, and our client was curious, if following the presentation questions, public comment, is there opportunity for them to potentially continue the application if there are outstanding items or disagreement to work to a solvable plan, or is it just up to you guys to devote and determine?
No, it's an opportunity that we can possibly, go back and, if you need to
Defer.
come back next month to do whatever needs to be done, then yeah, you guys can come back if need be.
Sure.
but you should know if you get turned down, you can't represent for what?
Right,
A
6
that's
year.
months?
before,
I think
yeah,
it's a
if we
year.
vote on it, then
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's.
But if you
but
decide you want to withdraw your application, you can come back within the year.
Yeah,
Yes.
like next month, yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly. Thank you for the clarification. Tonight I've got Ross Cowan with me. He's the developer, Armada Development. You want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. And Chip's comment earlier is we've been working on this a couple of years. We just were aware, in the last week, that we had, other issues we wanted to address with community members, et cetera. So, we thought, if we have to defer, we can deal with that and meet with folks and stakeholders, et cetera. So we want to make sure we have that opportunity if, depending on, but we want to learn from this too and get some clarification as to sort of how we thought about it too.
Sounds good.
So I guess to kind of just kick off why we're here, again, we worked with Armada over the last couple of years. We've gone through came to a couple of pre-application meetings, went through a couple of design iterations with staff, came back for conceptual SRT, feeling that we had a workable concept plan to develop the site based on the base zoning, the T3 edge zoning. Site is approximately 41 acres, about 17 of that, 16 and some change are presumed jurisdictional wetlands. We've had a wetlands consultant delineate those again, work with them to understand the site. We're, based on the code, we have a certain number of acres, 20% of the upland forest to be preserved on site, and then proposing to develop the rest as single-family residential, putting in the necessary streets and infrastructure. Working with staff, I think as we came back for our, second round of conceptual SRT, it was identified that we were proposing this street that exceeded the 300-foot length. Staff had previously, originally we had kind of a hammerhead design. After initial conversations, they said we needed to change that to a cul-de-sac, made the plan changes there, and proceeded with the submittal of the variance application, special use permit application, based on the, the comments and the progress through SRT at that time. And so the first item there is a variance to, understanding that the development code, speaks to and desires a thoroughfare connectivity with new streets and subdivisions. Our site, if you're looking at the site plan, we did bring a copy if we need to pull it up, but I think you all have it there in front of you. Certainly. You need help finding it, Hillary?
John is actually working on that to see if we can pull it up for you.
Okay, so if we're looking at the site plan here, north is to the left of the page. Omer Road is the perimeter road, kind of circling across the top of the page. Confederate Avenue is horizontal along the bottom of the page, just to familiarize everybody. There are wetlands on either side of this large tract. There's a smaller area to the left, to the north, which we're abutting against. There's a much larger wetland that extends onto adjacent property to the south of the page, to the right of the page there. And the upland portion that we're planning to develop, would like to develop, is situated kind of central in the site. There are a few existing, in addition to the wetlands, there are a few other existing things. The proposed detention pond there in the middle is actually an existing borrow pit, and we intend to utilize, put in an outfall structure and an outlet pipe to drain to, as that overflows, it would drain to the wetland today. We're just going to improve that connection. Again, the pond would still serve for water quality, in addition to including all the other stormwater infrastructure on site to meet the water quality standards of the county. So kind of working to the left of the page, you'll notice there's a large triangular area in the center. There's an existing communications tower on site that will remain throughout the project if it were to proceed. And then there are a number of single-family residential lots, those kind of white areas with the labels along Confederate Avenue, which back up to our property as well. So initial and conceptual planning, we looked at alternatives trying to provide a continuous drive either around or underneath the tower. Determined that those options were not really feasible, which led to the longer dead-end street. And so I think it's really what I have to offer for the variance and why we're requesting it. Staff had asked us through that process initially with the length of the street, just to confirm with the fire department that that they were satisfied with fire coverage, given the length of the street, knowing that they would need adequate turnaround with the cul-de-sac. You know, all comments and feedback that we received from the fire chief were acceptable throughout the process. And to Ross's point, when we received the staff report recommending disapproval of the variance for the length of the road, somewhat caught us off guard, but hopefully that explanation might shed a little bit more light onto why we're here and why we are asking for the additional length of that road.
Well, on that, I mean, the county can only, I mean, that's up to this board to grant anything over 300 feet, so therefore, that's probably why they recommended what they recommended, disapproval. But at the end of the day, it'll be up to this board, anything over 300 feet.
Sorry.
Do anyone have any questions for the
And did you consider
applicant?
doing a little bridge over the retention pond? Because that way you could get back.
I don't believe that's an alternative that we considered, ma'am. That would really just be cost prohibitive, more or less, and you know, potentially lead to more other impacts that would create other issues.
So I have a question. When you purchased this property, you knew all the codes, correct, about the dead-end street and the length of dead-end street?
I have to let the owner speak to the purchase of the property. Frankly, no. I mean, there's one sentence kind of buried in the code that says dead ends can't be longer than 300 feet. You know, in our review of the code and in coming to pre-application meetings and first round of conceptual SRT, that was unknown to us at the time.
I'm Ross. We had two pre-app meetings prior to when we closed, and I don't remember the exact road length, but we didn't know that it was a 300-foot minimum at that time. It wasn't brought up in our discussions, and we didn't see it either, so it was a miss.
Is there any more questions?
No.
Excuse me?
Are we allowed to ask them questions?
No.
Did you look at connecting back up to the street that comes off of Confederate Avenue? It looks like there's room that you could have gotten back through there.
Yes, ma'am, we did look at that. The initial concept showed I don't like a pointer, but showed a possible connection kind of coming around the lower end of the tower there, but behind the two
Where that lot
existing
17
single-family
is.
lots are.
Yeah.
The space between the property lines there and the tower foundations we wouldn't be allowed to build a conforming road section through that space. That was the initial concept. Then we looked at potentially going underneath the guy wires and similar situation. It just did not seem like it was the best alternative.
If you gave up lot 17 and 18, could you do it?
That's 14.
14 or 17?
Sorry, it's been a while since I looked at the numbers. 17 and 18 are 17 and 18 are the two around no, sir, it's the width constraint is actually at the end of where the yellow line ends, at the end of the tower foundation. That's the choke point.
And that can't be moved.
No, ma'am.
One other thing I'll add, we did consider removing the two on the far right, just as we look farther at, after discussion with the staff, because of wetlands, which is a different topic. But we did look at taking out two of those lots, which would have reduced the length of the road, but we still would be beyond the 300 feet.
You talking about 27 and 26?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, I looked at that as well.
I want to add one more thing. I mean, what we were trying to just broadly, we were trying to do, an infill, consistent neighborhood, that's smaller in nature and make use of the ponds. We've got trails around the ponds. We've got civic space within the, that's sort of built into the overall site plan. We were trying to make this a very cohesive, development for, super nice homes within the T3 edge zoning, which provides for larger lots.
Did you look at moving this street down here?
What is this street?
Sorry, I
That
can't-
street down this, that one? If it was moved down to the opposite end? Because then your dead end wouldn't be as long and that could,
Are you asking about the alley?
no, the one that just says street, that comes
It,
off
through the center?
Alma Road.
Moving it to
yes.
the expanded detention pond.
Yes,
side.
so I think the challenge we have is trying to design a street that has lots front on it. You'll notice we've got lots 4 through 7 front on the Ulmer Road, lots 8 through 13 front on the proposed street. Because of the width between Ulmer Road and the detention pond, it doesn't allow for 2 street cross-sections in there. The alley between, those lots identified is actually on the back of the properties, which is allowed by the zoning, but that's more of an alley for backloading the driveways for those lots. But there's not enough width in there to provide 2 streets and get the lot frontages to work out.
But you could take that street out, move those houses down, and then have a cul-de-sac there, which would not be that long. And then that would be shorter to this cul-de-sac too.
Yeah, it would still be significantly, it would significantly reduce it. I think you get 300 feet. The lot frontage is required is 75 feet, so that gives you 4 lots before you run out of street length.
You're very close to the wetlands, your buildings are, correct? And you even kind of overlap, looks like a little bit. Do you have anything to prevent the runoffs from all these houses and cars and oil on the road and all of that stuff that will be washed into the wetlands?
Yes, sir. I mean, as part of the project and building the streets, and the lots in general, the stormwater requirements require us to capture a percentage of the runoff. We have to provide treatment and justify that. You'll see the bioretention areas identified throughout the site plan. So the goal in final design would be to collect the street drainage, collect as much from the lots as possible, route through those water quality devices through the detention pond before it goes to the wetland. And there's certainly going to be some, perimeter areas on these lots that's landscaped and, adjacent to the wetlands, between any building and the wetlands to also filter that water.
Okay, is there any more questions? Thank you, sir. If we have any more questions, we'll call you guys back up. Can we hear from the county?
Yeah, we looked at this at the SRT, and he said that there's this little section in the code that's tucked away. We found it, and that's where the 300 feet for a dead-end street came to be. The SRT did not approve this. He has to get the variance before we can approve this subdivision. So when we did our staff report, we felt that there was really no hardship. He can still subdivide the property. That doesn't mean he gets 37 or 34 lots. And I'm not sure how we could shorten the road, but he has some kind of alternative layout for these lots and stay away from the wetland. If he gets a variance for this I don't know how long the road is. This is a non-conforming subdivision, starting before it's even platted. It's going to be a non-conforming situation. So staff felt that wanting this many lot was creating the problem. So we stated that application of the development code to the land or structure would not effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the land. The applicant can subdivide the property without the need for variances. The granting of the variance would confer special privilege on this landowner, because then everybody else would have to come for a variance also. The landowner is allowed reasonable use of the land for the subdivision, and if he met the code, there would, the subdivision would not be platted with non-conforming standards. The request for the variance permit is not in harmony with the development code and the adjacent properties. These lots are very small. There's this huge tower that no one can see right now. Once he goes in and he cuts all these trees down, the base of that tower is gonna be front and center for everyone to see. So we felt that the variance would adversely affect the health and safety of the general public. Everything is so tight, I don't see where he can even put a 50-foot buffer to kind of hide some of the stuff that's on this property. And we don't feel that it was consistent with the comprehensive plan. And I guess I should say this, and he's been saying 2 years, 3 years. He's been dealing with trying to sell this to the county. So he's been back and forth. That's why it's taken so long. But we're not recommending approval for the length of the road.
Just to be clear, just to be clear, the variance request is for both of the cul-de-sac streets, correct?
No, I think it's just for that
only the one
long one that
on
comes in,
this
yeah, uh-huh,
Yeah, okay. 'Cause
Yeah.
the other one is only 198.
yeah.
So it's under the 300.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of been a central concern. I mean,
And,
this is a small
and then,
area.
if he reduces the lot, then he doesn't need a special use to get into the wetland.
Mhm.
So we have two things going on here that is causing this unplatted subdivision to be non-conforming.
So it can be done, he just need to go back and reconstruct.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, without 38 lots.
Well, right. He can go redo the, I have a hard time trying to figure it out with these guy wires because,
Just
but,
Just the amount of.
But you know, Hillary, I probably should have asked them, but I'm gonna ask you. When you look at this, and you look at the picture like here, it's full of trees. I assume
Yes,
it's trees.
yes.
When you look at that, no trees.
all of them have to
They're
come down because
all
it's so
gone.
tight, yeah. Even the
Because
lots.
there's so many lots and they're so tight, there cannot be any trees there at all.
Well,
That's, to me.
Except for the wetland trees that he won't be
Well,
able to touch, but it's gonna be wide open.
and that's a really small contained area that I can't, I mean, setting aside any of the drainage concerns and filling in wetlands, but adding at least 80 additional cars coming in and out of that area. I have an office right down there. I don't see how that could be really.
Wouldn't you think, wouldn't taking all those trees out also have an adverse effect on all those property owners along Confederate Avenue?
Yes, and that's, yeah, that's what we, said about,
All right.
did we say that? That's the adverse effect, yeah. Because I wanted to put something in there about visual, you know, but I didn't know how to do the visual, how to get a visual impact statement we do it for the towers, because, you know, they do the balloon, but for this one, I don't know how we would have been able to have him show us that we're not gonna be looking at the base of the tower and all the other things. That the tower is technically supposed to have a 50-foot buffer around it. So, that's also something we looked at. Not sure how that's gonna happen.
And buffer around the guideline areas or just
Well,
buffer around the?
Back then, the tower was the perimeter was supposed to be the buffer.
I mean,
You know.
hasn't there been a 38 lot development proposed on this piece of property, like in 2015 or something, that wasn't approved?
I don't remember in 2015.
Yeah.
But I'd have to go back and look, but, I think that
think we
tower
were
is
planning.
causing the problem. And I don't think they can get rid of it.
I don't think so either.
And it's a very tall tower. Yeah, I hear it's like 400 feet. It's one of those radio towers.
Mr. Chair, my sense is we should send them back to the drawing board.
Well,
Or vote on it
Okay.
as well.
yeah, I was
Kind of
looking
an
forward to-
unthinking
let's
too.
see what the public has to say. Is there any more questions for the county? So we're gonna now open up public comment. Mr. James Lawton?
Can I move mine to number 15 for, about the wetland?
Okay.
Do we want
I
to
think
talk
we need
about
to
the
hear
what?
the second part of it, they too, before we talk.
We're gonna vote on this one first.
Well, we need to, so, because you have two separate, we need to vote on this one first before we go to the other one.
But part of this one is destroying the wetland, isn't that correct?
That's kind of almost where I want to hear what they have to say, so we don't do.
So how do we move forward on this?
Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think it'd be wise to go ahead and speak now.
I got a public comment and might.
Well, hold on, let me call your name. Did you fill out a form?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. So, Mr. James, do you still, what would you like to do?
I would like to go to the public comment 15 after.
He wants to do the special use.
Yes, the special use. All right, Tony, Isabel?
Yeah, that's me. Thank you. The problem that I've got, and most of the people in the Alljoy area and Confederate Avenue, is if you look at those 9 houses that they're gonna back up, I live on my property's on Confederate Avenue. My property's 200 feet wide. That means there'll be 3 houses behind my property. The drawing that I see up there, they basically got those houses backing up within 10 feet of my property. What that means is 2 things. All of the trees will be gone. They'll have to clear cut that whole area to put those houses in. Number 2, my property slopes from Confederate Avenue backwards for it's about a 2.5-foot fall. So all those hard surfaces they create with those houses, and there's not much pervious material will be left between them. I'm gonna have water probably in my yard. Every time that you get a hard rain, it's gonna be a mess. And of course, there's no graded and drainage plan or anything. I don't see how they can do anything. The houses are so close. But they will totally eliminate all of those trees. I think there's 6 200-foot wide lots on Confederate Avenue, and there won't be any trees behind there. Be totally gone. And that's basically what I've got, you know. And my neighbors that live, we all got the same problem. And the trees back there are massive. They're huge. It's a huge pine forest. It's been there for years. And they'll just be gone. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Karen Just?
I was actually wanting to be on the last of that people you called forward, because I was just gonna agree with everybody. But I own 33 Ulmer Road, directly across the street. And I'm actually all for progress, but it needs to be done smartly. This is, having this many homes in there, and I'm totally in agreement with what you said earlier, it's just too many, it's gonna flood everything out. And that's my problem with the thought of this going in here. Alljoy, the whole area, and my kennel, or my property, which is a dog kennel, it is the front yard already gets very, very wet, and I can't use it as any functioning space for my business, but I just have it there as green space. But if they are to build this and there's not gonna be the runoff that is done correctly, then it's just gonna flood my place all the more, possibly all the way up to my doorway. And it totally would just destroy everything. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about, I don't have any confidence in what anybody's been doing, anybody being the government and the people that be, in organizing our runoff issues. Is that the word I'm looking for? Our water problems? And we've been talking about this for years, and I've owned this property for 12 years, and I own another property in Alljoy for 3, and it's still the same conversation over and over and over. One of these days, they're gonna fix our ditches. One of these days, they're gonna fix our drains. It's just not happening. I don't have the confidence. Anything to
We
add?
understand. You
I'm
have
sorry?
any more to say?
No, I don't think so, but I might. Can I come back?
No. Get it
I
all
will
out
anyway,
now.
probably, if I had some.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Alan?
Carolyn?
No, this is,
My name is Carolyn Smith, and I live at Alljoy, and I am the president of the Alljoy Preservation Commission, which oversees the zoning that the county did about 15 or 20 years ago to protect this whole area. I will say that this piece of property, though, was not put into the zoning. It is kind of like a little donut hole that didn't get in. But the property next to it, the Bailey, he wasn't in it either, but Mr. Bailey, as you know, sold to the county, and it is now a county park. And the reason that was done is because of the wetlands. And we do have a terrible, terrible problem anywhere from Burnt Church Road down with our drainage. And the kicker is the county is fixing to hire a firm their next meeting, it's under contract. They're gonna decide which one they're gonna hire. And the county is fixing to pay out, I don't know, $175,000 to come in and do a study for the drainage of this area from Burnt Church Road to the boat ramp, back to Alma Road and everything else. And my one point is even if they are going to go forward, I don't think anything should be allowed to go forward until after the drainage study is done. This is not about them building houses. It is about our drainage and our wetlands, and this is wetlands. And this same property has come before y'all in the past from the former owner, Mr. Joe Pitts, and he was politely turned down 3 times, because I sat right here and listened to it. I live next door to him. And I'm sure that this man probably should have figured that out before he bought it. And now the county has been in the green space, I think, has had their eye on this property, so I don't know what happened to that situation. We were told at a meeting last week that the agreement had been withdrawn from the green space thing. But you're not just looking at too many houses, and I know it's kind of odd for me to be standing up here talking about this because I kind of do real estate myself, but it's the tower, it's the drainage, and it's what we try to protect at Alljoy that this is going to ruin. And then, like I said, the county owns it next to it with this big park they're fixing to develop. And that pond is just gonna push all the water over there and back. And then the one thing I've been thinking about since I've been sitting here looking at it, on Alma Road, the rec center is right across from it. And I don't see any road cuts or road studies or side cuts or entrances for this project, since it's only gonna have one entrance to it. I mean, where's your road cuts and your road studies and all that kind of stuff.
You have 20 more seconds, Ms. Smith.
Okay, thank you. I'm through.
You do? Thank you, ma'am.
Good job, Mr.
Good job. What is Alan Olenhill?
Well, Carolyn answered all the questions I was gonna ask.
Okay.
I mean, I can go up there and ask a couple things.
No, I mean, you don't have to.
My name's Alan Hale. I live on Scotia Street in Bluffton, in the Alljoy area. The biggest concern I have, we have lots of water that come down, shad and the rest of it. But the biggest problem is, what are they gonna put in for fill? I mean, they gotta grub this thing up a little bit to backfill it. That's a bigger concern because that's gonna wash on the county's property and the poor people on Confederate. I mean, nobody's even thinking about what's gonna happen to the environment.
Understood.
I guess I can't hear any more questions. Darn.
Thank you,
Hi.
sir.
Thanks.
Jane Hester?
If I talk, Jane, Hester, if I talk now, I don't get to talk next, I don't.
You
already-
can if you want to. If you have something else.
I'll keep my shot next.
Yeah, it's two different items.
You'll need to fill out another sheet of paper.
Okay, can I say too much in too small a space? I am, after I heard what these people had to say and the other people had to say, it looks like clear cutting, something I greatly oppose, for not just this section, for our entire earth. I mean, we need to preserve some of the trees and some of all those green things that are out there if we want to keep breathing here on our earth. If we've cut everything, it looks like everything is cut right in here. That is of great concern to me. Also, I thought, suppose somebody has a wreck or there's a disaster in this area. There's only one way out. And if the street is blocked, all those people can't get their cars out of there because there's only one entrance, one way in, one way out, one wreck, you're stuck. So that also concerned me with this plan. So as far as the length of the street, I think they need to go back, think this over, make the lots larger, be able to preserve some of the green that's in there, not give us an eyesore. Nobody wants a neighbor that's come in and given you something horrible to look at all the time. That's it for this. Thank you.
Thank you. E. Hessler? Okay. Jennifer Banks?
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Banks, and just growing up in the area, the Low Country, and I understand why they wanted to purchase the piece of property, but I can remember when the tower was installed when I was young, and it was going to be an eyesore back then, and I can't imagine being 57 years old and seeing the tower clear cut. I'm also a customer of the lady here who got the kennel. My dog goes there to puppy doggy daycare. She did a wonderful job with her paving. She's done very poor stones there. And on any given day that I can drop my dog off there, there is water in the line road of Ulmer where it's running off down. And if you come and you enter that property, I've always wore duck boots to Chris Caldwell's house, Joe Pitt's stepson. He was in a mobile home, and there has never been a time that it didn't look like I went bogging when I left his home. And I'm not excited about these homes, all this, and I think it's an eyesore. And I don't think you did your due diligence personally before you bought it, but that's my 3 months.
Thank you. Jessica Palladino?
Hello, it's nice to meet you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Basically, the majority of Bluffton residents are unaware and uninformed of this proposed project. But within 48 hours, we've got over 400 votes of Bluffton citizens requesting a postponement and a transparency of the data to make sure that more than minimal compliance has been factored into these plans, because it can affect all of Bluffton residents, from our stormwater to our infrastructure, to pollution to the May River, to flooding of properties that, our properties don't flood because we have the wetlands to protect us. Insurance premiums are gonna go up, extra traffic. Look what just happened a couple months ago, because this is a great example. Just a couple months ago, August, they developed the wetlands off of Buckwalter, PFO1A wetlands. And back in August, it was terrible flooding, sewage bubbling up into the May River. I mean, it's all over the news. You can still Google it. Nobody took accountability or responsibility for those homeowners. Nobody helped them. They got stuck. They took the hit. They took the loss. And nobody protected them. And I'm very concerned that that could happen to my community. It could happen to me. It could happen to my neighbors. It could happen to our small businesses. It could even happen to Old Town. It could, because it's half a mile from Old Town. And it's within, 1,000 feet of the May River? So, you know, that's another thing. I mean, the May River it's the soul of Bluffton. And it's already suffering from elevated concentrations of fecal coliform bacteria, and the recent reports suggest that the runoff is directly responsible, because observations record that the fecal coliform levels are always increasing following significant rain events. And right now we've got 4 miles of the May River that's restricted for shellfish harvesting. It's just not sustainable, but it can be. I mean, we could make something really proactive and something amazing, and that it inspires people to develop more sustainably. Something we can do to protect. This is one of the last wetlands that we have in Bluffton. All of them are pretty much gone, except for this one. And I just I just wish there could be a collaboration between maybe the town of Bluffton and Beaufort County, if it has to be developed. Maybe we can work together. Maybe the people can have the data so that we can not be so scared, because I just, who's going to protect us? And so I'm asking you to please stand up for us and make sure that what happens to the people at Buckwalter doesn't happen to us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jeffrey DuBois.
I wrote everything down, so forgive me if I read off this paper here. So hello, I'd like to thank the members of the council for hearing from us today. I'd also like to offer my thanks to Armada Industries LLC for seeing the value in our community and bringing more single-family homes to our growing American families. The purpose of flood ordinance is to protect human life and health, minimize property damage in flood areas, and encourage construction practices that minimize losses in these areas. NOAA has stated that a single inch of floodwater can cost up to $25,000 in damages. In the event of a significant rainfall event that leads to flooding, this entire subdevelopment will be affected as a whole. For a single inch of flooding, that's $850,000 in damages, up to, of course. Now, Debbie dropped 7.3 inches of rain. I'm on 35 Confederate. I have a digitalized rain gauge. And Hurricane Helene dropped 5.3 inches. There was, 2 months between those? We did not get rid of the water in that wetland before Helene came and hit us. So flooding has become so prevalent in our community that Kim Jones of Bluffton, the Director of Projects and Watershed Resilience, has embraced numerous projects in the recognition of frequent flash flooding episodes. She's even stated that we don't have an increase in fecal matter, we have an increase in stormwater runoff. The crowd here today stands as a testament that homeowners and businesses are concerned about the impacts that flooding can have on our homes. The ditches in the vicinity of 34 Ulmer and the Confederate Avenue residencies are 6 feet deep to accommodate the high risks of flooding in our area. Currently, there is no stormwater systems or facilities for any of the Ulmer Road communities. We need our wetlands, but we also need our single-family homes. If Beaufort County representatives hope to minimize the damages that are impacted from filling in wetlands, there are other options like incorporating large bodies of water. An excellent example of this within the Beaufort County is Fern Lakes. And Mr. Thripp, I encourage you to check out the Fern Lake subdevelopment. It was built in 1983. It covers a number of homes, and in the 40 years it's been built, It has never flooded once. So, if we are we've already seen, Jessica talked about the farm off of Buckwalter and what happened during Hurricane Debbie of this most recent year. And if some of those Beaufort citizens did not have non-disclosure statements written within their HOAs, they'd be standing here today. But they basically said that they can't come here, they can't speak because of fear of litigation. So we know that we call this place the Low Country. Thank you all for listening. I encourage the board to reject the special permit to fill the wetland located at 34 Ulmer. After witnessing destruction from Helene and Debbie, the costliest repairs being related to flood damage, I think that Armada Acquisitions can redesign this commercial development with a greater emphasis on integrating the water. And this would protect the assets of all parties involved, your assets, our assets, and the greater assets of the Beaufort community. Thank you folks so much, and I got this information from the Interagency Coastal Wetlands Work Group. That was in 2002. The article was Recommendations for Reducing Wetland Loss in Coastal Watersheds of the United States, and that was the EPA publication 840-R-22001. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Matthew Shoemaker.
How are y'all doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. I've lived in Bluffton my whole life. I was born and raised on Alljoy. I live on Confederate now. My dad, he grew up in Switzerland, South Carolina, when 278 was a dirt road. So I've seen it all. I've seen the pictures. I know the history. I had no idea this was going on until I got a letter in the mail. I mean, first reaction, appalled. I can't even believe, I'm looking at this, I can't even believe this is reality. There's so much to talk about. First off, the trees, I don't even see, all right, so I don't know the last study, when the studies were done, but I just don't understand how that is even humanly possible. I mean, they're gonna be sinking with the machines in there cutting the trees. The trees are just as much a part of the wetlands as the wetlands. You have the canopy, you have the root systems, all of that stuff filters the water that's going into the river. There's a culvert pipe that runs underneath Confederate, underneath Alljoy, and dumps directly into Kirk's Bluff. I mean, most people don't even know it's there. People who lived on Alljoy their whole life have no idea. I used to play down there in the culvert off of Kirk's Bluff with the Ellises. You guys live on that. It's a peninsula. I call it a spring tide. Now it's a king tide. When you have a spring tide or a king tide, those ditches, if it rained, those ditches are slap full all the way up to the head of Confederate, and that water does not move. If it's a high tide, that water will not move until it goes out. Till low tide, the river works in conjunction with those wetlands, and call them ditches. They're creeks. They're feeder creeks that run all through there. They're 6 feet deep. That's not a ditch. That's a creek that runs into the creek that goes underneath Confederate, underneath Alljoy, and directly into the river. The river is dying. I live it. My brother owns May River Excursions. I'm out there every day. There is less fish. There is less shrimp. There are less crabs. You take somebody out from up north, oh, you caught 3 shrimp. Holy moly, I've never seen a shrimp. 30 years ago, that was a 5-gallon bucket of shrimp. I'm not making this up. I'm sorry. How much time I got left?
You are.
All right, well, I got to talk.
About 20 more seconds.
Well, I got, so then to finish it up, no to the extension of the road. That's what this part is. No, no, no. If anything, how can I change that to 200 feet? No, no, no. No. They should, the money that they spent on this, the lawyers they knew that was in there, but they thought they could get it past you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment for this item? If not, we will close public comment. Just know that all your public comment will be taken into consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard from the county, the applicant, and obviously there's a number of concern. Let me ask you guys, after you've heard from the county, from the public comments, what would you like for us to do? I mean, we can move forward and,
We'd rather, this is a lot of great feedback, we'd rather defer so that we can take this feedback, work on our design, work on a better way to present it. We can show the trees are all.
Can we respond briefly just to try to, I mean, not, I think the decision's made on what we're doing here, but maybe address a couple of the comments from the public that are maybe not congruent with our plan.
I think you can address it today, or if you planning on coming back next month, or whenever it is.
I wasn't allowed to ask him questions, so if they can go back up there to speak to us, I can ask the questions.
Well, this is the applicant.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but he
public
wants to
comment,
address-
all you do is make a comment.
Well, he wants to address us, he just said.
Well, he just wanted to address the comments that was made. So, I mean, he as the applicant, he has the right to do that. I mean, do you not want to hear some of the concern?
No, I would like to ask him questions, I was getting excited, I thought.
I would suggest maybe y'all have a neighborhood meeting and y'all can have a conversation together.
I agree with that.
Yeah, this is not the right.
Can I ask y'all a question, then if I can't ask them one? Is this gonna be sewage or septic tanks?
I was wondering the same thing.
And see,
Not septic tanks.
that's some of the,
What sewage you gonna hook up to?
Where do you hook it
Yeah,
up?
that's what-
Who's gonna pay for it?
We don't have sewer, we've been begging for it.
There's no sewer on the there.
We're aware of the situation.
so what would you like for us to do at this? Do you want to defer this to our next, or until you can do all of your homework?
Yes.
Let them withdraw,
Just withdraw and then come back and
design
submit?
and come back to the SRT.
Okay. Yeah. And if that's your request, I can grant that. So you want to withdraw your application? Okay, all right, well, then that's for both items, yeah. All right, so,
Thank you.
would someone like to go ahead and place a motion that he
Make a
withdraws?
motion to approve to
Oh.
defer this.
Can I go ahead and make my last comment on number?
Well, they're
we've
withdrawing
closed
their
public comment,
application.
But, you can come on forward and say whatever it is.
Well, my name is Jim Lawton. I live at 52 Oyster Street in the Alljoy community.
Excuse me,
I simply want to follow up on what Miss Carolyn said, but to really point out that this property is zoned T3 Edge, which reads, "This zone implements the comprehensive plan's goals of preserving rural character in portions of Beaufort County. It reinforces established rural residential areas that are typically in the transition between more walkable areas and natural preserves and waterways, such as Bailey Memorial Passive Park, which the county is about ready to minimally develop, as a passive park would be. So I do not understand why you would even consider, this is not in character with T3 Edge, and it's not in character with Bailey, which is its immediate neighbor. So I would recommend that the owner went into a bad deal, because it shouldn't be built there, period. The zoning code that you have there, this conflicts with. Thank you.
thank you, sir. So if you guys want to withdraw, all you have to do is come up and request to withdraw your application.
Mr. Chairman, please withdraw the application.
Yes, sir, we'll withdraw that application.
For the special use permit and the variance. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that being said, the applicant have withdrawn his application for now, so we're going to move on to item Number 16, Ms. Pamela Brown, who is requesting variance.
Thanks for hearing me. I am requesting a variance for my fence. I have a fence on my property that sits between mine and my neighbors. It's not all the way to the property line, there's a gap between there. I submitted to you some paperwork with a picture of the gap. The reason why that gap existed in the first place was that my neighbor cemented some stuff onto my property, and I just wanted to get a fence up quickly because the neighbors continue for the last 19 months to harass and terrorize the neighborhood. So I just quickly put the fence up. I had a permit that expired in last November, and before that expired, I was going to move this fence to the property line. But the neighbors called the police, and then the sheriff's department came, and code enforcement came, and we discussed with them what they recommended, and Officer Goucher recommended that I get a new survey done, and I request a variance. The reason why I'd like to have the fence put to the property line is, one, my neighbor continues to throw junk behind it, and he throws stuff over the fence, and he has, not that the fence will prevent this, but he has broken my windows, smashed things against my house, smashed things against the other neighbor's house. He has accosted me, he hit me with a shovel, he has sprayed me with a hose, he has spat at me, he has parked his car at the bottom of my driveway and trapped me in my house. And this goes on and on, where he is going to jail soon for several crimes that he has pleaded guilty to. He's pleaded guilty to first-degree harassment of me, and he's pleaded guilty to threatening to kill 2 officers. He'll be sentenced shortly, but during all this process, I've been trying to get a fence in there, get it put in place. That's him causing a disturbance back there. Even though I have a restraining order, he's here. Whenever I'm on my front lawn, he calls the police. If I'm gardening or trying to clean up, he calls the police. And it's constantly trying to get me arrested. He is a felon. He's a pedophile, and he has already spent 7 years in jail, and he will be spending more years in jail shortly, once he's sentenced. He was supposed to be sentenced January 14th, but there's been a delay till February, it's coming up February 4th or so. It's not just me that he's aggressing towards. He's aggressive towards a family that lived next to me and have moved. The family on the other side of his house, where there is several senior citizens living there. He tried to run down Mima with the truck once. On the other side of that house is another family. He terrifies them. He's a nightmare. So I just want to get a fence. The fence is there. I just want to move it to the property line because he continues to dump things, and I'm just trying to establish where the property line is so that he stops calling the police and accusing me of trespassing when I'm on my property. Multiple times of being on my property, behind my fence, where he's called the police to say that I'm trespassing. So I don't, it was suggested to me because if I have the fence guys come, I already have the team lined up. They have told me they can't nail the fence in standing on my property. They'd have to be on his property, and he will just harass them, whether he's in jail or not. His wife will fill in the harassment, because she does that as well. She harasses anyone who comes around. So I wanted you to have the fence just face the other way and put it up and be done with at least that little bit of the nonsense that I'm living through. And I understand it's the code to not face that way, and I got a note about how it would be it would set a precedent for our neighborhood to not pay attention to code. But that, and I understand that, and I respect that, but there's so many houses in my neighborhood that the fences are facing the wrong way. In fact, I could even just go into my backyard and take a picture of my neighbor's fence, and it's facing the wrong way. I don't care. It's fine. I just am asking for the variance so that a little bit of the torture that I get from this guy will be resolved. I can put the fence to the property line, and it'll be clear that that is my property. And then Officer Goucher is trying to help me sort out the front of the property where he has piled tons of crap and has put his own little fence, using my stakes to lean things against. And this is trash that was on my property the other day. I didn't pick it up because if I did pick up, sometimes when their trash falls on my property, I've picked it up and thrown it out like the police have told me to do, and he'll still call the police. And I have to go through this ordeal of, like, you know, asking him where their crap is. It's insane. And I mean, and the garbage is the most minimal thing of this. It's the assaults and the attacks and the threats and being told I'm going to get killed from this guy. So whatever happens, whether it's a variance or not, I need to have a fence on the property line. I was recommended to ask for a variance so that the fencing guys don't have to be harassed. Whatever it is, I need to get a fence there in the proper spot.
So you said you have a professional fencing company, and they are not able to secure that fence without having it turn the...
Yeah, because he runs the poles, then the rails, and then the pickets.
Oh, I see how he's doing
nails
it.
in.
So
Yeah.
he's going...
Yeah.
Flat. I got you.
Yeah. So, and then the back part, there's a fence behind it, so he can't do that anyway, right? Because it's behind there. And then the front part, I just don't want his team to have to be harassed. It's you know, no one can come to my house without, like, there's some harassment going on. He sets up his alarms. I had a friend whose child was in my driveway, and he threatened to shoot him. And he called him derogatory names. It's just, he's too much. But whatever the outcome is, if I get a variance or not, I'm just trying to get this tiny bit of this giant problem resolved so I have a very clear line. You know, I got a new survey, and the survey company did go all the way to the street to show where the utility easement is. And so that the police can understand when he's trespassing on my property and when he has come onto my property and took a chainsaw to my bushes and took a chainsaw to my tree. He just, I mean, and with this survey and the stakes, we can now show that that is my property. But there aren't any charges, anything other than the harassment. So I'm trying to, I mean, this has been 19 months. I'm just trying to keep it as short for you guys as possible. Keep it to the fence. So I'm just trying to ask, you know, for a fence to be put in place so backwards so that the crew who's doing the work doesn't have to be harassed.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the applicant? No. All right, if we have any questions, we'll call you back.
Thank you.
County, we've heard your recommendation, seen it, but.
Yeah, I don't get into all of this stuff. We gave her a permit to put a fence up. The code says the fence, the ugly side needs to face her. The pretty side faces the neighbor. She put the fence up with the ugly side facing the neighbor. Now she wants a variance for that. This property line issue, that has nothing to do with this variance. It's all about, she needs to turn the fence around and meet the code. And I recommend disapproval for a variance, because you give it to her, you gotta give it to everybody else. And the code in 2014 stated that any fence that was built before then, you could build it any way you want. But today's code says the pretty side faces the neighbor. I don't see a hardship. She built the fence. She knew that it was supposed to be a specific way. She built it the way she wanted. Now she wants a variance. I don't see a hardship, and she need to fix it.
And so the fence is installed already?
Yes, the fence is there.
It's just not to the property line, and I didn't know about code when it went up. I don't know that kind of stuff.
Well, it was on the permit, and you got a copy of the ordinance that state how the fence is supposed to be built.
Again, I was only trying to keep cycle from throwing crap at me.
That has nothing to do with the fence.
It's just the speed that I put it up with.
Okay, do we have any questions for the county? Thank you, Ms. Hillary. Well, we've heard, public comment. We open up public comment. We have one. Ralph? Oh, God.
This is Miss Karen Brown, 1 charge, 2 charge. She's a criminal, she's convicted. So, minus her actual degree in theatrics, which you can see very good, she did, but she's also a convict. Okay, so let's put that into order. Number one, to my knowledge, we're here to address which side, just like the county said, which side the fence faces. All of a sudden, Mr. or Miss Theatrical over here throws in, oh, well, I want to move my fence. So, for one, I was never asked permission. I would give permission for her to face her fence. I would love to see the pretty side. She's just doing this to be malicious and spiteful. There's no other reason. None of this has anything to do with, she's got 31 pages of slander, of which I'll address later on. Your guys don't have time for this nonsense. None of this has anything to do with the way the side faces it. And if the side would have stayed where it is or changed, it wouldn't matter anything. Everything else would have been the same. So, to my understanding is that she's absolutely right in the sense that she's going to set the precedent. And I'll be the next one to be in front of you requesting a variance for how my fence faces. And I'll make sure the whole county will be here in front of you requesting because you granted it for her. She's violated all kinds of these things. Violated every zoning ordinance. She's already been fined. Furthermore, there is a gap between the property lines. There's plenty of room for them to face the fence correctly. Plenty of room. The reason why we're here is because we had to call the police because she tried to move her fence 2 feet onto her property. She's up here talking about my property, my property. Well, it's not her property, it's our property. I have the proof. I have the surveys here. It's very clear where the property is. There is a little buffer zone in between so the workers can get in there. And if they want to step on my property, I'll let them do it. There is no reason why she can't face the fence other than being spiteful, malicious, and all these things our way. So
you're saying you
does.
do not have a problem with the workers?
That's correct. And even if I did, there's still enough space for them to get there. Do you need to see a picture? Because I do have.
Not really.
No? Okay. So, I mean, even right now, there's still enough space. I can squeeze in there. I'm not a skinny guy. I could go in there and do it. If they need to come on to address this, then that's fine. But again, all these other things are irrelevant to what we need from you guys.
On this plat I'm looking at, there's a wood fence. Is that your wood fence?
The wood fence is hers, mine would be
But
PVC.
that's on your property line.
I'm sorry?
It's on your property.
Not currently, no, but she's trying to put it there. That's what all this is about, all this whining and theatrical stuff that she has a
It looks
degree in.
outside the property line to me.
Which, ma'am? Which property line, or which survey are you looking at? Hers or mine?
That was done by T-Square Survey.
Okay, so that's gotta be either mine or her old one.
And then there's a vinyl fence?
The vinyl fence would belong to us. So essentially, you can see, is this the one you're looking at, ma'am?
Your lot 69?
Yes. It should be to the right.
Oh,
Oh, so these are two different.
you're looking at lot 71, I think you were.
Lot 70, she's 70.
That, one of lot 70 shows it.
They both
It's
show,
like we have two surveys that don't agree. One is from 2022 and the other one's 2023, so I guess.
right, well, she tried to manipulate the system and change the survey. So, that's what she does, and she's trying to manipulate you at the same time. She's a professional, she has a degree in this stuff. Ask her, she'll tell you. An actual theatrical degree.
All right, so, yeah, we got two different.
Did you put your fence up after?
No, mine was the first fence in the neighborhood, and everybody else wanted to copy me, as they always do.
All right, is there any more questions for the applicant? All right.
Oh, and if I could, I just also want to say that part of the issue here, there's no HOA in our community, none whatsoever. And on top of being manipulative, she's also a control freak. I really highly recommend she needs some help. But that's the problem here, there's no HOA, and she's wanting to control everybody around her.
Thank you, sir. Your 3 minutes is up. So we've heard, is there any more public comment for this item, number 6 on the agenda, 16? So if there's no more public comment, we bring public comment to close. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard. Is there anyone that would like to place a motion, or let's have a discussion?
I think the county's right that this is about a fence. This is not about personalities.
And if there needs to be help putting that fence up correctly, then the police can get involved to help get on her own property.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So with that being said, would someone like to place a motion? Definitely sympathize with the applicant, but just having to struggle with the hardship.
I would move that, there's no hardship here and the application should be disapproved.
So there's a motion on the floor to deny the application for a variance. It's been made and
I'll second it.
second. All in favor of denying the variance, signify by raising your hand. So we have.
I'm
Opposed. So with that being said, it's been passed that the variance be approved. Denied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any old business? New business? Chairman?
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
Properly made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Second.
Everybody.
Gina, thank you. Gina.